All right, today we're going to talk about your brand imagery. And I want to, first of all, the image that I have on there is not what we're talking about brand imagery. I simply have that there so that I can remind you that next week, on next Friday, I will be with that guy. And but we will still be live, even though if you see or hear that I'm not around, if you don't see me responding in the group or whatever, it's because this guy and I are hanging out. And I use this image to remind me of my why about my brand, okay? It's the flexibility that I get to be able to go see him reminds me of why I do what I do. And so that's just a little bit reminder there. He's actually 5. Fixing to turn 6, but he's actually 5 in that picture. All right, let's jump into our agenda this morning because there's 4 things we want to talk. He looks much older. Yes, Judy. He does. He looks about 7 or 8 in that picture. We want to talk about your brand imagery, and I'm going to do this in 4 areas. We're going to focus on 4 areas this morning. And the first one is we're going to focus on your hero image. And then we're going to talk about where do I get that hero image from, custom versus stock images. We're going to talk about other images and where you might be able to get those other images. I have a huge advantage in that my daughter is a professional photographer. And my grandson seems to want to act like a professional model. So that always helps. But those are other images where you might be able to get them from. And then what do you do if you have a personal brand where you are the product and the brand? And so we'll talk through each of those stages this morning. Okay. Anybody have anything to question before or anything that you need before we get started this morning? I've shared that link with you so that you have the link that has all of the assets that we've used so far. Everything that we have covered so far is in that ericsaid.com/rebranding. And you'll find everything there, the link that I shared with you earlier that I was trying to share when the whole system shut down. All right, let's jump in here and we'll talk about this hero image. The thing to remember as we focus on the brand imagery is this. You want to go back to your customer hero worksheet because you want to have your customer in mind when you start thinking about what do I use for the image that's going to represent my brand or images that are going to represent my brand. I want to make sure that you focus your attention on that customer hero worksheet. What does that person's regular day look like? What is their in and out, coming, going, all of that? What's your focus? Remember, my focus was this. So it's important for me to remember that. I got to think about what's that hero's focus. And that's the customer. What's the customer's focus? What are his or her aspirations? What would she like to be or become? What would he or she like to be or become? And that's that customer journey that we're going on. I really like this little stair step thing right here. We're going to use a circle in just a minute. We'll go back and grab some things from the past, because this is like learning math, okay? Everything that you're doing here is built upon something that you did last week or the week before that. Does that make sense to everybody? This is not just a one and done kind of training program. This is all built upon multiple activities and resources and things that can be put together to create your brand. So think about the customer journey, not what do you like, but what's a part of that customer's journey. The brand imagery is not about what you like. I struggle with this because I have clients all the time who say, but that's my favorite image. I know, but does that have anything to do with your brand image? This is one of my favorite images, the one that I started this webinar with, but that has nothing to do with my brand imaging. It's an image that I like, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be in my best interest to use that. So that's the first thing. It's not about what you like. It's about who? Who's everything that we do for the brand? Who's it about? That's a question, by the way. It's all about the customer. It's always about the customer. Everything that you do has to be about the customer, not what you like. And it's not what you can get for free or the prospect. Thank you, Robert, for reminding us. It's if you have existing customers, about the customers. If you're starting out, it's about, and I love this. There was a phrase created by, and the name just flew completely out of my head. It's from the book Cha-Ching. But there's a great statement there where what he trained his salespeople to do was not to refer to people as customers or prospects. They were either potential or probable purchasers, or they were happy customers. What you call somebody makes all the difference in the world. And I thought that was pretty cool. So it's about your probable purchaser. What is their journey like, rather than what do I like or what can I get for free? Does that make clear sense to everybody? So now what we're going to do, I just want to walk you through this. The best images, at the best, the images that show what your ideal customer is experiencing currently or can become with your help. Instead of looking at an image and say, I'm going to use that one because it's really cool. You want to look at what is the customer currently experiencing, or what are they going to experience with my help. At worst, the images that showcase your solution in its best light. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples of this as we go, okay? So you want to consider what's the best imagery that I can use will be the thing that shows my ideal customer in his current experience or in his future or her future experience. Here's a couple of examples. If you'll notice, if you work with websites at all, you'll notice that this section right here is now being called the hero section, right? Has anybody else noticed that? This is a hero block on a website block builder. It's the hero section, and that's because it's supposed to be about the hero, right? Your customer hero. The hero image should be impactful. This is why we'll focus on the hero image first. And notice here that in this particular case, this is about creativity. And so we have a pencil. Think with your hands. This is actually a really good understanding. Okay. And then this one over here, this is business funding. And so we have a successful businessman in this image right here. Does that make sense to everybody? This is the focus is on the customer. It's on the person that we're trying to reach. It's the probable purchaser, or it's the satisfied customer, or whatever. So sometimes that brand imagery, remember, this is at best, it shows images that the customer is currently experiencing or can become with your help. You see that here. And then over here is a hero image where it focuses on the solution. It focuses on the solution. And it shows someone using the solution, or a video of how to use the product, or an illustration of the solution. A lot of people focus a lot of attention on the solution. And we kind of have a tendency to bounce back and forth between the emotion that we're talking about up here and the solution we're talking about down here. People, remember this, people buy for emotional reasons. They keep for logical reasons. They buy for emotional reasons. They keep for logical reasons. And so you have to think about that as you're creating this imagery. What kind of emotion am I creating here, and or what kind of satisfaction am I going to create? The first was just simply the layout. This just shows you how a hero is laid out here. This is how a hero session is laid out. If it was blown up more, you could see it better, Judy. But when you're having, and we'll talk about images later, but when you're having images created or you're looking for images, typically what you want to do is you want to make it so that you can put text on this side and put the image on this side. And if you, does anybody know why we want to have the text on this side and the image on this side? Anybody know why we want to do that? Y'all are getting the first and most obvious thing is that we read left to right. So you want the first thing that your eye encounters to be your text, not the image. But the other thing that happens is on a mobile device. On a mobile device, it reads this and presents this first and this second. Make sense? I don't want this image to show up first. I want this text to show up first on a mobile device. And so just keep that in mind. A lot of problems can be eliminated when we understand how a mobile device presents the information. And that will help you a lot. That's free. That doesn't have anything to do with brand imagery. But when you're having images done, make sure that you use this space on this side over here. Okay. And that's really what's being demonstrated in this layout up here. All right, the next thing, we go back over here to the hero images. This is the solution. Now, of the two, this is better than nothing. This is better than an image that makes no sense whatsoever. But this is probably not as effective as the emotion that's elicited in this, okay? I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's take a look at this one right here. It's your money, own it. Now, very powerful statement. But this is actually about an app, okay? And because this is about an app, what do you see down here? And this is kind of a fascinating website. I don't have the link for it to you here. I was looking for imagery used for this. And this actually shows somebody texting on this app, okay? But this is actually functional. And so when you find this on the site as an app, this is actually moving. So this is a GIF that's operating in the background. But it's a solution. And it's an example of somebody using the solution. And the motion in the GIF right here makes things work pretty well. Again, I kind of, Rob said it's bland, but I kind of like it because the app is by itself. It's sitting in my hand. It's not, doesn't have, I don't have multiple tabs open at the same time. I don't have other things operating. And so it tends to be, by its very nature, kind of bland, okay? So now, this is a little bit more. We're going to dig in a little bit deeper here. Excuse me. This is a website that has that is promoting a product. And you can see the device right here that connects to your phone and tracks your pet, okay? And so what you see is you see a pet modeling the device with the explanation of what the brand is here. Again, this is somebody using the potential solution. This works. It's not the most effective, but it does work, okay? And this is a good example of this. You see you see a very content dog sitting here with the device, or you see the app with the dog. And this is really kind of cool. It has the puppy's picture in the middle of it. Oh, that's kind of cool. All right. You understand what we're doing? This is good product imagery right here. It's a good example of the hero on the journey. Your customer's on a journey. We're taking them down a road. We're taking them down a path. We're creating a customer journey here. And if they can see, if your customer, if he or she can see that we understand their journey, the customer hero will instantly recognize you as their guide and their mentor. See somebody's comment here. What we want to do instead is we want to trigger people's emotions. As cool as these images are, they don't necessarily trigger emotion. What's missing from this picture? Anybody know what's missing from this picture? There's no people in the picture. This is who's my target market here. It's my happy customer, is the puppy owner who didn't lose their dog. It's the feeling. You want to elicit the feeling. You want to trigger that emotion of your customer being on a journey. The end result, the outcome is that they've never lost their dog. We're trying to trigger that emotional feeling. We want to take a look at either their current emotion or feeling, either the current or emotional feeling. Make sense? Can you imagine what this would have looked like if instead of this, you had two people driving around with their windows rolled down, with their heads stuck out the window trying to find the dog? Are you with me? Would that elicit more emotion than just a happy puppy sitting on the pavement? And see, that's what I just described was the problem and not the result. So we either want to do the current emotion or feeling, or we want to focus on the desired outcome, feeling, or result, right? Or a child with a pet. Yeah, that's amazing. Now, let's take a look at that customer journey again. And we're going to use this here for our imagery, all right? We have the current feeling, we have the desired outcome. We have a whole bunch of other stuff in the middle of this. We'll talk about each one of those in just a second. So we can focus on this spot right here. That's the current feeling. That was, remember, we did the hero journey over here. We talked about that several weeks ago. And we have this current state of affairs. Where is that person at currently? And I'm going to give you a little exercise that you can do that will help you with this. But this is the current feeling. This is the desired outcome. These are the two things, when we talk about emotions, these are the two things that we want to focus on. This section right down here is not where we want to focus our attention. On the solutions, often on the solution focused imagery, oftentimes we're focusing on this section right down here. And this isn't always the place where you want to be, because what happens down here? Somebody tell me what happens down here. Work. You've nailed it, Art. Down here's where all the work's at. This is where they finally admit they have to have help. This is where they reach out and get a helper. This is where they're taking guidance. I used to tell my kids when I was I coached track and debate when I taught school. And you said you want to talk about two different subjects, but I coached track and debate. I would tell my kids every single season, I would ask them this question, regardless of whether it was track or debate: what's going to be the hardest thing that you're going to do while you're here? And if it was track, they would say, well, the hardest thing that we're going to do is the workouts. That wasn't true. What's the hardest thing that ever happens in this process right here? Especially with this one right here. What's the hardest thing that happens there? Being coached. The hardest thing that a person will do once they realize they have a need for help, the hardest thing is to submit themselves, just exactly like Art said, so that you can surrender what you want to accomplish to get the help that you need, so that you won't ever have that issue again. It's the hardest thing that there is. And so this isn't the place where I want to grab imagery from. Does that make sense? And I've been coaching people in other things since I left high school. And it's still the hardest thing that people will ever do is to be coached. So we're taking this person on a journey. We're going to focus on here, or we're going to focus here, either on their current feeling or their desired outcome. We're not going to grab imagery that's in this process right here. Okay? Now, think about this current feeling. Here's some examples of the current feeling. I really like these, okay? This is somebody who's experiencing what? If you have an angry gut, do you see that headline right there? If you have an angry gut, if your stomach is a problem, then you know that. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. I like this image right here a lot better than I do that Pepto-Bismol commercial with the 3 people dancing around in the pink outfits. Somebody was supposed to think that was funny. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. But this image is, if you're struggling with a problem with your belly, then you know that you're struggling with a problem with your belly. And that current situation that's who I want to look at. And I'm going to show you an example of that in just a second. See this guy over here, he's experiencing, he obviously has some frustration, he has some debt, he feels hopeless, he feels helpless, he feels like he's in trouble. Think about where he's at on this journey right here. Where's he at? He's right here, all right? This is his current feeling. It's his current feeling. If you see people happy and having wonderful vacations, your potential purchaser may not identify with you right here. All right. This helps to get that current feeling to show the prospects that you understand their challenges, their pains. And then once the prospect understands that, then you put yourself in a position to be able to do this right here. Right. Help them to identify their need for help, become their helper, give them the guidance that they need, walk them through the challenges, and help them to achieve transformation. Everybody with me? Make sure we're all still on track here. And then I like this last one. This is a kid who's obviously struggled with being overweight. A bunch of us have fit in that category at some time. And this is a Nike commercial saying, "Find your greatness." Actually, one of the kids I taught in school was inspired by this program from Nike and set out to lose 200 pounds. And so this identification with where you're currently at is very, very important. Now, this is important, okay? Watch this. I want you to see something. I'm going to chase this for just a little bit. I did a search for tooth pain. What comes up in my Google search for tooth pain? Did y'all see that? I'm going to give you a bunch of free stuff here too. This begins with the current feeling. The current feeling is toothache. If you're feeling this, the last thing you want to see is some big smiley, cheesy guy with perfect teeth. That's the last thing you want to see. Obviously, these people are in pain. All right. So this is going to be the open parentheses because I need your attention for just a second. I want to show you something. So stick with me so I'll show you this. I typed in tooth pain in Google and notice what comes up. Their ad is connected to the most visual images that are there. Do you realize that Google now, half the people who search on Google find the answer right here from Google and never find the person's website that came up in the search? That's getting a little discouraging from an SEO standpoint. That was my parentheses for the day, just so you understand that. That's Google has started capturing this traffic right here. All right, just want you, and what's it connected to? It's connected to an ad. So no matter how hard somebody works to get in that section right there, this is what you're going to end up with. Okay, so now do you understand this from I just had to throw that in there because you'll see this almost all the time. Now, so do you understand what we're talking about here? This is the current situation. That puts this person right here. Puts them right here. They're in this current state right here, and clearly illustrated in the images that are here. All right. I'll give you another example. If I type, and I tried this morning, I have a screenshot of something in just a minute, but I typed in leaky faucet because I have one, and I didn't get a single picture of a leaky faucet, which I thought was a little surprising because that's where we're at right here. I don't need to have a plumber and his backhoe sitting in my front yard for this right here, right? You see the difference? It was about a leaky faucet. It's about the customer. What's the customer's current experience? What's that so you want to look at your customer? Are y'all seeing my screen okay? Y'all, it's all about your customer. So you want to use this customer hero worksheet. Hopefully you have that done, and you can use that as you think about where's that customer at? Are they in pain? And how can we get them past the challenges that they have? Big companies are masters. Coca-Cola is a master at this. And you can see that right here. That's the desired outcome. One or the other of these is going to be powerful. Coke does a really, really good job with this one here by showing a bunch of happy people in a happy place quenching their thirst with Coca-Cola. Y'all with me? This is the desired outcome. So we're either going from the current feeling or the desired outcome. Those are the two things that you want to use. Glenn, you obviously can't use them at the same time. I'm going to show you an example of something very similar to that. And so stick with me. I think you'll see that in just a minute, Glenn. I have something that's similar to that. You know what that is. It's a before and after, but that's kind of using the two as a contrast. Here's something that will help you drastically, and I don't have a worksheet for this, but I will put one in that link later, just as soon as we get off here. I just thought of this as we were going through this, and I was going over it in my head a second time. And I do this with all of my customers. I do this with all of my clients. We list problems and outcomes. And I look for the language that they use to describe the problems, or I look for the language that they want to focus on, okay? Yeah, Michelle, I think that's a common problem. It's the solution instead of the result of the solution. So if I see this person over here saying frustration and easy, why does this have to be so frustrating? How come it can't be easy? Does that make sense to everybody? We're going to focus on the emotion. Now, they may not be directly connected, but if I start listing down here all of the problems that people are all the terms that people are using to describe the problems, then I know what to look for from an imagery standpoint. Are you with me? If I'm going to focus on their current situation, then I need to look at the emotion, the words that they're using to describe the emotions that they're feeling. So if they're frustrated, if they say they're pulling their hair out, if they say something to the effect, this is not working. How come this has to be so hard? I list that language down here. But you made it sound so easy. What did they want? They wanted the outcome of easy. Are you with me? So just simply listing those things can make all the difference in the world in helping you to find the correct imagery. I'm going to show you where to find those at in just a little bit. This is what you should not do. This might be the worst. This might be the worst hero section on a page I've ever seen in my life. I don't want to see somebody getting their teeth fixed. Right? Because that puts them where? Puts them in the challenges and the transformation. This is the unfun part. Now, I know I see her with a smile or what looks like a smile. I know better than that. Right? How many of you, the first thing you do when you're going to go get a tooth worked on, the first thing that you do is you go, I'm going to have a big old smile. No, it's not what you want to do. Okay. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to see that customer during their transformational time. Not when you want to be there. Okay. The transformation is tough. I wrote a book called, I wrote an ebook that I use with my coaching clients for this section right here. And it's called Don't Throw in the Towel Too Soon. Don't quit now. You've gone through these steps right here. Now's not the time to quit. Right? So let's move to the next thing. Selling a solution versus selling an emotion. I don't know how well you can see this. I had to use somebody else's image here because I couldn't find one. But you see the leaky faucet right here? See that faucet dripping? Tell me if that's easy for you to see. Well, I know it's not easy for you to see, but do you see it? I could not find, using leaky faucet, I could not find anywhere a website in the town I live in the county that I live in, almost 500,000 people. I could not find an image of a single plumber had a leaky faucet. This was easy to find, but this isn't what I want. I don't want to see a picture. When I have a leaky faucet, I want to see either the faucet's leaking, which is my current situation, or I want to see myself having a good night's sleep and not have to listen to that drip, drip, drip coming out of the bathroom. Right? But what I got instead, no, I can't. Sheila, I just can't do that. I have to have enough room here to be able to see. So I can't do that. I'm sorry. There's got to be a way to zoom in, but I don't do that. But what I saw instead was plumbers over here at work. And you don't need to be able to see the images in order to understand what we're talking about. I don't want to see some guy tearing my bathroom apart. I know that's going to happen. What I see over here are dollar signs. That's the last thing I want to see. Remember, I'm on a journey. I'm on a journey. I'm up here at the top where the current feeling's at. I know I want that faucet to stop leaking. I'm going to have somebody who's going to help me with that. I don't necessarily need to see pictures of the helper. And what you're seeing over here, pictures of the helper. I don't want to see the guy having to remove part of the wall in order to get to my plumbing. That's not what I want to see. I want to see the current feeling and the desired outcome. And what I saw in every single plumbing picture was this. And I don't know why it is that plumbers just absolutely love that their logo on their vehicle wrap, but that seems to be a really popular thing. All right. Now, the next thing. Where do we find the images at? So now, do y'all understand that what we're doing is we're looking for two kinds of images. We're looking for an image that represents the current feeling or represents the desired outcome, one or the other. Is that clear to everybody? Does everybody get that? So where do we find them? Probably the worst place to find them is free images. We have a ton of those in Usein. We have a ton of them that are available to us on all kinds of platforms. Those APIs are easy to get. And that's not the kind of images that you want to use. How many of you have seen this image right here before? This guy with the headset on, people in the background. How many of you have seen that image before? How many of you have seen this hero image right here? How many of you have seen this image right here? That's what you get when you get free images. So when you're looking for your brand imagery, the last thing you want to do is use an image that everybody else has already used. Most of you should have gotten an email from Bertrand this week, probably yesterday, talking about website templates. The problem that I have with website templates is that what you end up with is you're trying to, he was talking about trying to fit everything into that space, okay? But the problem with trying to fit everything in that space is that oftentimes people use the same images. I get this all the time. People say, well, do you have any covers, or do you have any this, or do you have any of that represents essential oils or represents plumbers or represent? It's like, if you do, you're going to have exactly what everybody else has. Right? So I want to discourage you from looking at free images as a source for your brand imagery. Paid images are a much, much better solution. I've given you a link. I've obviously given you a link to Pixabay here, but I've given you a link here to Adobe Stock Photos, and you'll pay money for the images. But the fact is that if you pay for them, then you will have a much greater likelihood that they will be unique. Okay. But this is an option. I've given you a link to Adobe Stock Images. There are some other places, Shutterstock, other places where you can buy images. Now, Robert said he uses stock images a lot, and the fact is that I do too. I use them a lot, and that's okay. It's okay. I did a whole series of background images, taught you how to do the background images, but that was for background images. It's not my brand image. And we're talking about the brand image here, and the brand image makes all the difference in the world. Okay. The links are all in that right here, Robin. Oh, I added a page. Sorry about that. Well, I'm having all kinds of tech issues today, guys. I'm sorry. Paid images. End up with an extra slide in here. You have free images. You have paid images. And Art just did it too. Did weird things on me. And the third possibility are custom images. Okay. My daughter happens to be a professional photographer. It's kind of nice to be able to have a professional photographer. Then you know that your image is going to be unique. It's not going to show up on somebody else's site. You know that nobody's going to say, well, I've seen that 12 times. You understand? Custom images, you'll pay for them. You'll pay for the talent of the photographer, but I can promise you it's worth it, right? Custom images where you're paying somebody to do it makes all the difference in the world. Now, not easy to get a 5-year-old picture like that, but if you're a professional photographer, it's fairly easy to do that. All right. So when you've got a professional photographer, it's easier to get an image like that. Now, what was the rule I gave you earlier? If they're going to, and we'll talk about your brand in just a second when the brand's you, but what was the rule when you're having custom images? Anybody remember? See it right here. Keep this in mind. And that is, you will make sure that you keep you don't have a centered image, that you have something that's offset just a little bit. Illustrations are another brand image today. And in that link on rebranding, I have given you a link to an article written about how popular illustrations have become. And they are the hottest thing in the marketplace right now. Now, you can get an isometric program like we've talked about before. The ISO Creator, you can get there's others on the marketplace. You can do those, or you can have somebody do it for you. Illustrations are amazing. These are amazing. What you don't want to do is mix them. You don't want to put illustrations with photos. It's very confusing when you do that. Okay, keep your images all the same. This is a good example of this. This is GoPro's site. It's actually, of course, it's Photoshop. I threw that door over the top of that to illustrate the open door kind of thing. That it was an open Zoom room. No, it doesn't work well if you mix image styles. It's not a good idea to do that. But you can get an illustrator, and I've given you a link in that rebranding link. I've given you a link to Fiverr illustrators, and there's a bunch of them on Fiverr. For $10, you can get this illustration done for you. Okay, but you want to make sure that you keep your image styles the same on the same pages, right? One more thing, and that is when it's your personal brand. When it's your personal brand. And sometimes, like this guy right here, it's his personal brand, and he's the product. Does that make sense to everybody? Sometimes the brand image and the product are the same, and he happens to be. But I want you to see several things in this, and this is really good. This guy's obviously pretty buff, right? This is the reason why we hire a trainer. We all want to look like that. What's the fact? Most of us don't look like that, right? But what kind of a position is he in? If there was ever an image that clearly illustrated the helping nature of the customer journey, it's this image right here. That's a brilliant, this is an exception to that transformation challenge issue. This is really that helping structure, and it's beautiful illustration of that. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, because of and we'll go back up here to this first slide, and I'll show you this again one more time. Because of the nature of that hero section, I want to make sure that you know, if you're hiring a photographer, and tell them what your outcome is. Tell them what you're looking for. Tell them what you want to do. Then make sure that they put your image on this side over here so that you've got this section in here to be able to put your customer hero information right here. Does that make sense? If you're hiring a professional photographer to get either the current state or the desired outcome, and they're going to take images for you, make sure that you get them so that you've got it laid out like that. That's the reason why you don't want a distracting background. Question was asked up here about the door, and the intention is to make that look like it's open. If I'd made this really small, you wouldn't be able to see his amazingly cute face. But this image had a very distracting background on it. So this was taken obviously over a bridge in a park. So I removed that distracting background and replaced it with a gray background. My favorite color to paint walls, but gives you something to work with. Make sure you have something to work with when you're hiring a professional photographer to give you those custom images. Make sure they understand what your outcome is going to be, and they'll give you amazing results. Right? Is that clear to everybody? Are there any questions about how important your brand imagery is? It's different. Your brand imagery is different than the images you're going to use. And so if you spend 50 or $100 to accomplish this, it's definitely worth it, because that's going to be your brand image going forward. I always make sure that the image is on this side right here, because do you see this? This is your typical hero section. The writing is on this side right here, the call to action button's right here, and the image is right here. Good question, Larry. Anything else? Again, it just, as Michelle had said earlier, this is so obvious, but yet it's something that we all forget and we struggle with, and we end up getting lost down in here and trying to provide solutions and that kind of thing. All right, any other questions? If not, we're going to wrap it up. Tony's asked if it would need to be on the other side if it was a book cover, and that's a possibility. All right, y'all have an amazing weekend. I look forward to seeing you next week, okay? On Friday. Sam, no, I'm thinking about you, man.